future of the Xbox console seemed so bright at the beginning of this generation, and lately, that bright future has turned into a bit of a dim fog. Beyond just seeing the Xbox brand evolving and changing in unexpected ways, questions about the next console and the future hardware continue to crop up. Will there be a new console, and when? And what about handhelds? And with recent reports showing Xbox hardware continuing to slow down, which path does Xbox or Microsoft see as their way forward? Well, in order to talk about where they might go, we have to establish where they stand currently, and that looks a little bit like failure. A recent look at Microsoft's quarterly earnings paints a bleak picture. While headlines initially seemed like a big turning point for Xbox had taken place, close examination revealed the true story. And I'm pulling here from The Verge. Quote, overall, gaming revenue is up 51%, bolstered by the additional Activision Blizzard revenue, which contributed 55 points of net impact. That means without Activision Blizzard, Microsoft's overall gaming revenue would have actually declined this quarter. Now, initial celebrations of this revenue growth were quickly tempered by the reality that without ABK, things would have looked far less favorable. And even with all those increases, Xbox hardware seems hell-bent on declining. Quote, despite some early successes for Xbox games on rival platforms, Xbox hardware is down by a massive 31% this quarter, a big drop following a soft quarter for Xbox sales during the all-important holiday season last year. Microsoft admits the obvious in its earnings filing that the big drop was, quote, driven by lower volume of consoles sold. Now, keen observers pointed out that the 31% decline was year over year, and this time last year, Xbox also reported a hardware sales decline. So this is a decline of a previous decline, and the decline is likely to continue. More from The Verge. Microsoft CFO Amy Hood says the company is expecting Xbox hardware revenue to continue to decline again next quarter. It's not hard to imagine how Xbox hardware ended up where it is. 2024 opened up with leaks and rumors about Xbox games going to rival platforms, and those rumors became a reality in an Xbox podcast with Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond, and Matt Booty. Consumers naturally started to question why they should buy an Xbox if Xbox exclusivity was becoming a thing of the past, or at the very least a question mark about every major title announced. And that line of reasoning has allegedly taken root with even third-party developers. In the wake of this year's GDC, it was reported that some third-party developers were questioning bringing their games to Xbox, and it seemed to be linked to uncertainty about the platform's future. If Xbox is moving their own titles to rival platforms, how much priority should be placed on developing your game for Xbox hardware? But just because consumers and developers may see the future of Xbox being a bit hazy, it doesn't mean that Xbox shares that opinion. The infamous podcast about the 4 Xbox games going to PlayStation and Nintendo, it brought more than vague statements about the games that were moving. It also saw a strong commitment from Sarah Bond about hardware. She also expressed this in an official email recently, saying the following: we are moving full speed ahead on our next generation hardware, focused on delivering the biggest technological leap ever in a generation. While some have been quick to point out that she says hardware and not console, many see this as an encouraging vision for the future. At the very least, it's a ray of hope at a time where the Xbox hardware standing is not as dazzling as many were anticipating it would be at this time. And Sarah Bond isn't the only one who sees a better future for Xbox. Satya Nadella celebrated some interesting statistics on a recent fiscal report, pulling from GameDeveloper.com. We're expanding our games to new platforms, bringing 4 of our fan-favorite titles to Nintendo Switch and Sony PlayStation for the first time, he said. In fact, earlier this month, we had 7 games among the top 25 on the PlayStation Store, more than any other publisher. Now, this fact was celebrated in different circles across the gaming community world, and for very different reasons. One side celebrating that, hey, we have the most top sold games over there on that platform, and others are saying you're basically celebrating being a publisher. Well, regardless of what the public may think, Satya is comparing Microsoft to all other publishers, signaling where they see opportunities for greater earnings and greater growth. Also signaling maybe how they start to view Xbox and where they stand in the market. But Satya also restated their commitment to push into more places and devices. He said this. Weighing in on Xbox, he said the company remains, quote, committed to meeting players where they are and bringing great games to more people on more devices. Now, while this commitment is not new, the phrase more devices is something Phil Spencer has hinted at lately, but not in the realm of publishing games. He's been dropping hints about the future of Xbox hardware, including more devices. And some of this isn't necessarily new. We saw FTC leaks about a cloud hybrid device. We know that Satya said, let's just make a controller and have that be the cloud access point. But recently, The Verge published an article titled, The Future of the Xbox Looks a Lot Like a PC. And this is where all of the threads start to connect and intertwine. You have hardware sales declining, rumors about third-party devs unsure about putting their games on Xbox. You have Sarah Bond and Satya Nadella's comments about, a technological leap and new hardware, and Satya seeing them as a very strong publisher. And then Phil Spencer making it clear that the future of Xbox hardware will potentially look more like a PC from the Verge article. Spencer recently said in an interview with Polygon that the Xbox team is thinking about how to open up its ecosystem and embrace PC stores like the Epic Games Store and itch.io. It's a radical rethinking of the Xbox console model, and Spencer doesn't usually tease things like this unless it's something Microsoft is seriously considering. And The Verge was not done thinking through what this would mean, because obviously if you're going to open up your platform to PC launchers, it's not just the launchers that have to work. The games would have to work. More from the article. To be able to open up the Xbox to PC stores and embrace a more open model, several things need to happen that I get the sense are in motion inside Microsoft. First and foremost, it will need to make the console capable of running PC games. Now the dots are starting to connect, especially when you look at something else Sarah Bond said in that memo about biggest technical leap. She said, we are building on our strong history of delivering backwards compatibility to our players, and we remain committed to bringing forward the amazing library of Xbox games for future generations of players to enjoy. Xbox President Sarah Bond wrote recently in a leaked internal email. Now, this sounds an awful lot like a future generation that's going to need a way to bring their library forward. Well, if you're just doing another console, would this be necessary? And The Verge seems to agree. They said the following. This feels like a team is being set up to transition away from the idea of Xbox and PC games being two separate things, while also ensuring that existing games continue to run on future consoles that adopt this new way of operating. It would open up the Xbox to run a lot more games and make it easier on developers. Given this could lead to more expensive hardware and then the need to subsidize said hardware, The Verge looked to Phil Spencer for commentary on this challenge. Spencer admitted in an interview with Polygon recently that subsidizing hardware is, quote, more challenging in today's world of pricey components and a lack of overall console market growth. And Phil said, so I think, what are the barriers? What are the things that create friction in today's world for creators and players? And how can we be part of opening up that model? I think the last line there really lands the plane, opening up the model. It's a phrase that touches a lot of things. The PC platform is certainly a more open platform. It's commonly referred to as an open platform. And having a model for your console that is more open and more like a PC would certainly make your platform easier to develop for, given the number of third-party developers that already build their games for PC. But opening up the platform could also mean having hardware built by other companies. It's even been speculated recently that Xbox is looking into having other companies build hardware as essentially like you would see with maybe a Steam Deck, where there have been people speculating that as well, that there will be other companies starting to build that hardware and then selling it, because why not just get other people to share that burden of distributing hardware? And The Verge sees this as a possibility. They said the following: open up the underlying model of Xbox to being more like PC could also enable third-party Xbox consoles in the future. That doesn't mean Microsoft will walk away from Xbox hardware, but if it's doing lots of software work to open up its platform and make it easier for developers to build games, then why not extend that even more to hardware? And this is the line of thinking that I think leads also right into handhelds. And Phil Spencer has spoken a lot about handhelds recently in interviews, but he doesn't just talk about handhelds. Like, he really likes them. He likes using them. There has been speculation, there's been rumors and leaks that Xbox is working on a handheld, but Phil Spencer has said really what he wants from a handheld is the following: I want to be able to boot into the Xbox app in a full screen, but in a compact mode, said Spencer recently, discussing handhelds in a Polygon interview. He said, I want it to feel like the dash of my Xbox when I turn on the television, except I want it on those devices. So the picture is starting to become less out of focus, a little less fuzzy. Microsoft is a software company, purchased a large amount of software with Activision Blizzard, and the CEO of Microsoft is celebrating beating all the other publishers on what was once a rival console, and Sarah Bond and Phil Spencer are revealing what feels like a hardware plan that is more open, more like a PC or a PC-based handheld. So it seems to me that Xbox is leaving the console fight, but not in the way that you would think. Imagine a console that is more like a PC. It's very simplistic, though. They have an HDMI, an Ethernet, and a power cable, and you just plug it in to your television and you turn it on with a controller, kind of removing the stigma of the need to plug a PC into your television and have a mouse and a keyboard and all these extra peripherals. They could simplify it and build essentially an Xbox PC box console hybrid sort of thing. This allows all first-party Xbox devs to basically build for PC first. Right now, they build for PC, they build for the Series S, they build for the Series X. And I do know there is similarities between the Xbox consoles and PC, but if Microsoft wants them to start going multi-plat and building for PlayStation as well, or also sometimes building for Nintendo, this could simplify that process if Xbox looked more like a PC. This certainly leaves questions unanswered, however, about the Series S and the Series X. Could they be updated to run this new and more open operating system? And would that work with their existing hardware? Could you turn the Series X and the Series S into essentially like PCs? They kind of already are in some sense. And the question would be also, is Sarah Bond signaling this when she talks about, quote, bringing forward the amazing library of Xbox games for future generations of players to enjoy? Is she imagining a world where bringing your library forward would be to essentially a new type of platform? Like, if suddenly you were trying to play on a PC instead of a console, would your library come with you? Well, that would be necessary if they were selling a PC-style Xbox. So the future for Xbox hardware is still somewhat foggy, but if the fog clears and an Xbox PC emerges, I wouldn't be that shocked, which would also pair well with an Xbox PC-based handheld. And in light of a lot of the rumors we're hearing and the growing sense that handheld gaming is on the rise, I certainly could see Xbox pushing into that as well. And it just might be Xbox's best play to keep a foot in hardware while continuing to grow as a publisher. But those are just my thoughts. Now it's time to hear your thoughts. And you can do that in a comment below. I try to reply to as many as I can, but I also do a live stream and we put the card right here at the end of the video. It's also sometimes a pinned comment below. Would love to have you come discuss this with me live. Head on over or hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.